Oh, it's something to be proud of. It is 7 o'clock and we have a quorum, so why don't we get started? So we'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Prospect City Council, Tuesday, February 16, 2021. The first item on the agenda, well, two items, is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting on January 11th, and then the approval of the minutes of the special council meeting on January 13th. And they've been distributed. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
There has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved. Next item is Mayor's report on update on city matters. I have two things to say. One is that I have written the annual report on the state of the city, and it's a couple pages long, and I'm not going to walk through all that here. It will be printed in the newsletter in a few days. That will be out there. There are no surprises, but it's pretty thorough. The other thing that I wanted to bring up has to do with the 4th of July. And Laura, are you there? Laura?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, well, check me on anything I say here, but I believe I've got everything right. The fireworks company that we have been using for years is no longer available. I think maybe they've even gone out of business. But in any event, we can't get them. So we've been checking with other companies, and they are all booked up for the 4th. We haven't found anybody who's available to us for the 4th. They are, however, available on the 3rd, which is the Saturday of that weekend. So put that on the table for thinking about. The other thing is that we don't know right now what other activities we would be able to do on the 3rd or 4th, like bouncy houses and parade and that kind of stuff because of COVID. So one of the things that has occurred to me is to have a community event, say on Labor Day, when I think that the situation would be better. We don't have to make any decisions tonight. I just tell you that these are some considerations, and I would welcome your input tomorrow, the next day, next week, whatever, on what you think we should do. And that's my report on the state of the city right now. Any questions? Okay. With that, we'll move into the committee reports. And the first one is Parks and Recreation. Is there someone here? I don't see Linda on the screen. Someone here to give that report.
No, Linda, she's listening in. She was open for me to answer any of the questions if anybody had anything from the report that she gave. It does outline the new budget items for the park, and then one of the larger highlights, and so she's coordinating for the things that we've allocated, i.e. the invasive plant removal. They're in the midst of getting the contract prepared. Same thing with the Putney Pond study. The Eagle Scout project for what all of the scouts have done was handed to everybody so that the rest of people in the city know that they've done a sea of work, 38 different items that they've been able to add to the parks, from bridges to trails to boardwalks to trailhead kiosks. And then one of the other things is developing a plan, a vision for the parks, if you will, a multi-year look at kind of where we could go, what would be priority projects, budget, and then being able to elicit some feedback from the citizens to be able to get that in there too. So that's currently in the works. But if anybody had any questions, I'm happy to answer those for her. And she said if there's a moment where she's got to chime in, she's listening and she knows she can hit the link and jump in. But she had some engagements, but she is happy to do that if there is something that is astray or I'm not able to help with. So let me know.
I have a question. Sarah, we are coming up on the month of March, so there are 4 months left in this fiscal year. Do you or Linda, to your knowledge, have information from Ecotech on what they can get accomplished in these next 4 months?
Yes. So as soon as the contracts are signed, which she says are basically imminent to get to you and Chris to be able to finalize the language, just in case there's anything verbiage wise to change, they will be able to start, and they see no problems with being able to accomplish those projects before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions?
Now, this is Frank. I want to congratulate Linda on the parks. It's been a long time coming, so great.
Hopefully we'll be able to have that for you all to see. And then, like I said, to get some feedback. Actually, some of it would be in the short term. There are some grants, just to let you know, that we're all looking at and to see if we can get some help for some money and kind of get everybody's input. So I'll pass that along just in case you didn't hear it. That's awesome. Thanks, Frank.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the Forestation Board, and that's Linda Knox.
I think Lee is with us as well. So if there's any questions, he has been involved from afar. So he knows everything we've been up to and has participated in our meetings, and we'll be glad when he gets back. You all should have a report on our February meeting that we discussed the treatments for the coming season, the updates on hazardous trees, some information plans that we have that we're working with Parks and Recreation. The good news about our Tree City USA status, which we have been awarded another time. So we're very pleased about that. But I think the main focus that we are hoping that council's had a chance to take another look at is the planting plan for Cali Park, and something for the traffic circle near, it's not a circle, but the island near Wythe Hill, because we have some money for planting that we can use this year. And so I'd like some feedback on the latest information and what your thoughts are, because I would like to be able to tell everybody we can move forward this and have Andrea looking at ordering trees and making arrangements for planting.
Yeah, the council packet had a multi-page information about what the Forestation Board proposes at Cali Park in particular for everybody to look at or have looked at, and that's what I too would like to hear any opinions about.
Actually, I was one of the people who had a concern or several concerns with the early proposal, and I want to thank you. I think the new proposal looks very prudent. It looks like you have given up trying to plant trees very close to those houses that butt right onto Cali Park. And it also looks like your setback from the road and from the sidewalks look very good. I appreciate the new diagram. I thought you folks did a great job.
Thank you. We had a lot of input from Parks and Recreation. Ron gave us a lot of input in terms of managing the space for public events. We looked very carefully at the tree species and how they would develop over time, so it would not become a problem for the use of the space or maintenance.
Linda, this is Frank.
Hey.
White Hill, that intersection at Wythe Hill Circle, which I live on, has been a sensitive area for quite a while. As you know, we've had some false starts with that. So we have to keep in mind the line of sight traffic concerns that people have with that intersection.
Okay, it would be before the intersection. It would be in the area of where the dead spruce was removed, closer to the front of the island, closer to 42.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, almost close to where the turnaround,
Yeah.
the turnaround is. I
Yes.
did want to say, I wanted to thank Herb Schulhafer too, because I recognize his handwriting in a lot of
Yeah.
these. So I send that to him as a thank you. And then I heard at your all's meeting the discussion of the Serbian spruce and the hemlock. I know there's a preference, at least I've heard from a resident, to have, some local species, but we've also talked about, hey, it's the place, the soil type, the what actually works right there, et cetera. So I see you've got those two options, and I think either of them look really good for that particular spot. So that's my
But we'll come
opinion. I
to
appreciate
what's
it.
available, what the nurseries have in stock, because we think both choices could be very interesting and of an appropriate scale for the location.
Anything else to Linda?
No, just a question. Are you going to do it, or you're going to ask us for a vote?
I would like to have a vote so we can move forward officially.
I have no problem making a recommendation that we vote on the plan as it's presented to us on the agenda today.
Thank you.
Well, Sandra, it sounds like you're in favor of it. How about you, Frank?
I'm good with it.
Greg?
Yes, I like it.
Don?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Well, there you are.
It's unanimous.
Go
I
for
love
it.
it. Thank you.
Go for it.
We will. It's going to be beautiful.
Linda, are you ready for us to move along?
Yes, I'm done if you have no other questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next two committee reports on the agenda are library and history books. Sandra, is there anything to report?
No, but thanks to Laura Taylor, we may have a significant report on the library at the next meeting. We're working on something right now, and it's beginning to look like we'll come to you at the next meeting and talk about it. And in regard to the history book, no, this is a time where a lot of cleanup is taking place, and my Excel spreadsheets are growing. Boring stuff. That's it.
Backing up to the library, you've got my curiosity going. What is it with you and Laura?
It's a secret until we're ready to tell you.
Okay. All right. Is Jeff around? We need a police report.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Very quiet month. January was very little going on. Just from the reports, just a lot of little nitpicky stuff. We continue to have thefts from cars. Again, I mentioned before that we're having just incidents with pistols. And I don't know whether it's a result of all the unrest and everything that, we had locally, over last summer, but a lot of the thefts that we've had from cars do involve people leaving guns in their unlocked cars and then people taking them out of the glove boxes. I don't know what we can do other than, maybe we can put something out, Ron, in the newsletter, and also when we get on board with that new website thing that we can send some stuff out there. It's although I do find it pretty stupid that you have to tell people not to lock their car, and number two, to not leave a gun in it, for Christ's sake, but we do. So we did have a few of those. We did make an arrest in January, and it was a good one because this was a guy that not only has he plagued us a little bit, but he also got the East End pretty good. This is a guy that breaks into cars, and some of it they occur at parks. Like he got a car down at Hayes Kennedy Park there on Bass Road, there at the end of Bass Road off River Road, and he broke the glass, stole a purse out, and immediately uses the credit cards. So he ran up to Kroger's, and we believe it's the same guy that probably hit our park last summer, where he broke a window out and took a purse there. because that is pretty unusual for us where they actually break glass. And this guy did that. So Mike McKeon did a great job of identifying this guy, and come to find out he has like 30 other cases pending all throughout, but all the other officers involved throughout the county, they've all identified this guy, and he just got picked up on a boatload of warrants within the last couple of weeks. And it was sort of humorous because when Mike went to the courthouse, it was almost like a stand in line. Everybody was showing up to serve their warrants on a guy that was already in custody. So that was pretty humorous, I guess. We did recover a stolen car from the apartments up on Montero. It was a car, we recovered it in the first week of January, and it had been stolen the first week of December over in Graymore, Devondale. So it was basically on the lam for about a month. It was a Mercedes, and we recovered it with the keys about a month later. No damage to the car, so whoever had it just drove it around for a little bit. Other than that, not much to report. The new code enforcement guy continues to work out great. All of you got to see his car. It came back. It turned out great. He's been driving around quite a bit in it, and he's getting a really good response in it. People are stopping him, and they're noticing that he's out. So that's a good thing. So I don't have anything else.
I see Rick often in that. If you can't see me, Chief, it's Sarah Odell. Yeah. So the car looks awesome. I see it from the window when it drives by, and I'm like, oh, he's out and about. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
I
he
did
loves
have,
it.
yeah, I had, well, I bet. I did have two questions. One, for the gun owners who are, I would call it not safely owning their gun or securing it, I guess, when you're talking about in the vehicle, is there any form, the answer is probably no, because of probably privacy. Is there any way to do targeted communication to those people? Like, hey, just FYI, don't forget this based on, either the permits they've registered or something like that. I'm assuming the answer is probably no, but I didn't know if there was a
No.
way to target. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we have access. I think ATF would probably have it, but the way that you can go to just a gun show and there's really not
Yeah.
any exchange of information.
Yeah.
In fact, there's one this coming weekend. I saw it advertised on TV last night. The Great American Gun Show.
Gun show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if you've ever actually been to one of those things, good Lord.
Yeah.
It's an adventure. I went there once to just attempt to buy ammunition. I was
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. I left in about 15 minutes.
Oh no. And
Yeah.
there's no fine, and I assume again this goes back to more constitutional matters, but there's no fines that could be levied. Like, I realize it was an accident, you left it
Right.
unlocked in your car and it was stolen, but there's nothing, there's no recourse besides a shameful look. Okay.
No, there's no law that's set up for that.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I figured. It was free to ask. So,
Oh yeah. It angers me too, because at some point the wrong person's going to get a hold of it.
yeah. And I did have I was going to save it for later, but I did have a question for you just in case. This is more for Rick, but since I think you sometimes see his notes, whenever he reports, hey, this is what I've been doing. And it might go to Sandra or Don for the pavement guys. In terms of I think there was a discussion about the shrubs along Hunting Creek Drive and trees and whatnot that kind of are encroaching. I see Sandra smiling. I don't know if that's good or bad that I opened my mouth now.
No,
Is
it's
that-
fine. We drove by there the other day and pointed it out to everybody.
Okay. I was just curious if there was
Yeah, there is going to be a new emphasis from Rick on targeting, the overhanging trees over the streets, and then also the shrubbery that would be in violation. That's sort of a new thing that he'll be moving into.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
he's just eating alive right now with the permits and the dumpsters and stuff like that. And he's
I
done
believe
a great job with that. And I can't believe the amount of revenue he's generated. And I never thought this would be a money-making deal, but apparently it is.
Well, people, when you sit at home and you see that project you want to get done, there's a lot of
Yeah.
dumpsters involved in some of
I
this.
never realized that nobody was actually getting a permit for
A
the
permit.
dumpsters, until he brought it to my attention. I was not aware of the sheer number of them. And he catches them after the fact. And so that fee is $100 instead of 30.
Wow.
So
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you. I've seen you guys out driving in the snow, so I appreciate it. I'll use this time to thank Ron and Public Works for however it happens, it's magic. So
well, I'll tell you what,
God bless you all, because
in 2012,
awesome.
after I got here, every car that we bought, we've attempted to buy the 4-wheel drives, and we've been able to get everywhere. And so it's really paid off for us, because when I first got here, there was only, I think, one car in the entire fleet that was all-wheel drive. And so we had to share it when the snow came. So
This season has proved its worth. Well, the city,
yes,
you guys have made everything look good, because 42
yeah,
has not looked great in terms of KYTC, taking care of that piece, or Metro, but
well,
the neighborhoods and you all have shined. So congratulations to
yeah,
to
they
all
they
of you
did
all.
they did a really good job last night, because when I got here today, I was checking on. They even got into the courts and everything, so that was great.
They sure did. I've got a couple of neighbors that are doctors, and there's no digital way of them to do their jobs, and they had all been to work by 7:30 this morning, and our street is really one of the last ones to get done legitimately.
Well, good deal.
Jeff, while you have the floor, I'm looking down at our agenda, and the next item on the agenda has to do with Rick Wilson as ABC administrator. He's under your supervision and you've worked with him. Could you speak to his capability of doing that job?
Yes, he's extremely organized, and he does very well with handling of paperwork, and he's even generated some of his own forms. He came in today with a few ideas that I think will really work out well for us. And we're fortunate that we don't have a lot of establishments here in Prospect that actually require the use of an ABC license. So this would not require very much of his time at all. I think there's probably only about 12 businesses that even have liquor licenses in Prospect, and that's a once a year deal. So that would strictly be an administrative duty, because if we ever have any complaints, for example, when we had Bistro 42, if we had a complaint that we thought somebody was selling after hours or whatever, I would just make a call to state ABC to have them come in and do the investigation on that, because everybody at Bistro 42 knew all the police out here. So there's no way that we could sneak in after midnight and they wouldn't know all of us. So we could just make a phone call to somebody else to actually conduct a liquor violation check. So that's not what we would expect Rick to do, but he can do all of the liquor licensing, and that would not require much of his time at all. And it's only a once a year deal. So, and he could handle that with no problem.
Well, thank you for saying all those good things. And having heard that, let's move into a consideration of that municipal order. Does anyone want to move its adoption?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, Sandra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Since you moved it. Frank?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Don Gibson?
Yes.
Sarah Odell?
Yes.
Doug Farnsley?
Yes.
Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we come to the war of the two ordinances. The reason that there are two is that I could not presume to know which way you would decide to vote on the recommendation we received from the Planning Commission. As you all know, the Planning Commission has unanimously recommended that this rezoning be approved. but because the property is in the city of Prospect, it's a recommendation. It's not a rezoning in itself. So it comes to you all for you to enact an ordinance either accepting their recommendation or in the alternative, rejecting their recommendation. Now, having said all that, are there any questions about this? Sandra, you raised a couple earlier today. I think Chris can explain whatever needs to be explained. Okay, I don't hear anything.
Could I
If Chris,
have the floor? Oh, I'm sorry, Frank, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say that would like to hear Chris's explanation because I have a couple of questions for Chris, actually. So,
Okay, first, let me say, Sandra did call me a while ago and asked me about this as to why we would have two of them. And the answer is pretty much what John indicated. We did not know, and we did not want to presume how you would vote. She pointed out that she was afraid that since you had that language on the one rejecting it, that it did not meet the land use and development goals. See, I don't think that's a problem because if you pass the one, you are implicitly saying that there was that you reject the second one and that you agree with the planning commission. So I think you make a decision as to which one you want to go with, and then we'll make sure that it's done legally. So.
Actually, in thinking about this, I think that generally speaking, at least the bulk of the goals in 2040, I agree with. There are some that I've got issues with. But one of the things in this that is going to cause me to vote for it, and that is the fact that this is a unique property. It isn't just a question of taking this from residential to commercial. This is a very narrow strip of property that fronts on 42 and is still really zoned the same way most property that we live on is zoned. And it is on one side got a church and the other side got the fire department. Nobody is going to want to build single family homes on there. And so I would be much more concerned with my vote if it were a different piece of property than the one it is. But as it is unique, I am going to vote that we go ahead and support the rezoning.
John, could I be recognized?
Of course.
Thank you. I want to piggyback on what Sandra just said. I echo her thoughts exactly, but let me add a few more things to this. Oh, first of all, let me say that when I first saw this, the way it was presented, I did call John, and I think John was just trying to cover his bases and make sure, because he didn't know how we were going to go. So I look at it as just a convenience for us, but I am supporting ordinance 604-2021. And I'd like to tell you why, again, to piggyback on what Sandra said here. First and foremost, I look at this as yet one more opportunity for a fun thing to do in the city of Prospect. And people like to eat out. And it's a good restaurant. They have nice beverages as well. And so it adds to the joy of living here. So I think it's a blessing that we have this handed to us, but as we also work to create other things that make living here, the quality of life better, I think that's a good thing. So this was handed to us, and I think it's great. As far as the C1 zoning is concerned, there's C1 all over the place in this particular part of Prospect. So it's nothing new. And so it fits in. And I totally agree with Sandra on the R4. This lot is too narrow, really. And frankly, I wouldn't want to see it developed the way R4 designation could allow I don't like the density of that if it were to be developed as a residential place. So, and it's sandwiched, frankly, in between a church and a school. So again, it's good for for a C1 location. And the last thing I want to bring up, and I'd actually like to ask Frank if he would help me with this. I called Frank earlier because Frank has great expertise in civil engineering, and I thought I was right on something. And I know that Frank did some work on it too. So let me just kind of introduce it, and let me, Frank, if you don't mind, ask you to kind of chime in and make sure that I'm right. So when I first saw this proposal, I saw the 8909, I think that's the right address, US 42. And I knew that that lot wasn't 2 acres. I knew there was a lot behind it, so I couldn't figure it out. But at the bottom right-hand part of the drawing, I did see, and this is the only place I saw it, it said 2 tracts of land. So sure enough, I got on Logic, and I found out that there is another lot that is behind it in tandem. It actually, and Frank, help me out here, but I think it actually has an address of 6603 Delhaven Avenue, which is a ghost street. So, but I'm thinking that that's a blessing, because if it does go back these 2 lots, and if it does touch, even if it's a ghost street at this particular point in time, then that means it could be a means of entry and exit. So let me stop right there and turn it over to Frank. Frank, if you don't mind, were you able to look into this, and is that right, that it could be tied in?
Yes, but and this tie into what I was going to ask Chris. I went through the survey descriptions that we were handed as a package of, let's see what it is here. The legal description of Tract 1 is correct. The legal description of Tract 2, the meets and bounds, or the boundaries, or the whatever you call them, is incorrect if the plat is correct. As Greg said, the plat identifies a back parcel. The back parcel is defined by all of the meets and bounds of the survey, but its address is on Delhaven. So what has been applied for, and Chris, why I think it's in your bailiwick, what has been applied for is the parcel on 42, with the 42 address, US 42, and it doesn't define, although it misnames the other parcel. I just wondered if that's significant enough that to have an impact on our decision.
Can I jump in? Oh, I'm sorry, Frank. I want to just say something before Chris responds.
Okay.
Frank, were you okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the wording of the ordinance says 8909 US Highway 42. However, it says it's 2.1303 acres. And so I measured it using the Google measuring tool, which is real accurate, by the way. And that's how I know that this is 2 lots, not 1. So Chris, pursuant to Frank's very good question, could we simply change the verbiage in this to say that, to include that extra lot, and say that both of those comprise the 2.13 acres? Or is there something else that we need to do in order to satisfy the legal requirements?
I really don't think that you can. You can only approve what the Planning and Zoning Commission sends to you and what they have approved. You've taken no testimony relative to the other one. You'd have to have an additional hearing on it. If there's a mistake that's been made by the developer, then they need to go back and correct it themselves. It's not up to us to correct their mistakes.
Actually, the place in the ordinance that lists the address is a whereas. It's not in the body of what we would be voting on. And the whereas has no legal effect. The attachment that we've received clearly shows there are 2 separate tracts. And it gives the correct acreage of each of them.
I agree. And the drawing does show in the lower right-hand corner, it does specify 2 separate tracts of land, so.
Well, if
Correct.
that's the case, and then planning and zoning approve those, then yes, you can go ahead and approve that.
But
Mhm.
there are different addresses, Chris.
Well, as long as the legal meets and bounds descriptions are correct, you can go ahead and approve what the Planning and Zoning Commission approved.
Which they are. The very first page of the supplement has a tract on one page, and then the second page has tract 2. And the
Yeah, and
meets
they're-
and bounds are separate on each one.
Right, and they're correct. They're correct in accordance with the plat. I checked that.
Mhm.
So, okay, if that's the way we go, then that's fine. But to Greg's point, there is the issue. Well, it's not an issue with us certainly, but we need to be aware that Delhaven Avenue is abuts this property, and it's a 30-foot right of way, and it's granted to someone. I don't know who owns the rights to go through there, if anybody. But just a point I think is necessary. Well,
Are you saying
we've
they
been
could
dealing.
different ingress and egress
Chris.
onto Timber Ridge or what?
No, that is the road that it goes back behind the firehouse. It comes off of 42, is perpendicular to 42, and then goes behind the firehouse, behind the school, and that's the right of way that exists right there. So
okay.
we just need to be aware that exists. Now we've spent so much time with the potential LDG stuff. I mean, we've examined those lots back there right of ways. So it's but it's worth noting in this case. Now I'm going to change to another question I have, Chris. In here of the what do you call them, the parts that say you can't change, that it has to be
The binding elements.
binding elements, right? So,
Elements.
okay. In binding elements, the last item in the binding elements says there are no monument signs, and our ordinances allow that. So where do we stand relative to that?
Actually, we'd prefer a monument sign because it would be what we do.
Well, I understand, but the binding elements that the zoning laid forth say no monument signs. So do we? How
Can
does
you help
that?
me, Frank? Hey, Frank, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, just so I can follow. Do you mind giving me the page number? I see one that doesn't allow, and it could just be the vernacular you're using. I don't see that particular vernacular. Do you mind telling me the page you're on, just so I can follow? Sorry.
Oh, I'm not on any page. This was done earlier.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking
I'm
at the
going-
binding elements. Are you talking about the part where it says no outdoor advertising signs, small freestanding signs, pennants, balloons, or banners shall be
Yeah.
permitted on site?
Yeah, that's it.
Is the
Yes.
monument? It's just that word you're using. I'm not familiar with. Is that encompassing all the items in line 5?
No, in fact, the opposite. A monument sign is one that is not any of those things.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I apologize because I'm confused. So we're okay with 5 saying no, the things I read, but okay with the thing they could
Well,
do,
I've
or
got
are you all saying the opposite?
I've got to
Sorry.
find it. What page are you looking at? I mean, there's
I'm
2.
on page. There are. It's about.
It's 2.
It's actually the last page of the attachment.
Oh,
Yeah, there's 2 sets from a
there's
January
2
and December
sets.
meeting.
2 sets. Yeah.
Page 12 of 12. If you find anything that says, 1 through 12 of something, go to page 12, and it'll be at the number 5 of that. It's about halfway through.
Which is the same as the one on page 22.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we would agree that they should not have any of those things and that they should have a monument sign.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll tell you what is not part of this discussion, but I would hope we would take a serious look. I think that the proposed building looks like a spacecraft out of the 60s and is not compatible with the traditional kind of structures that we tend to favor. I think that arc that goes over it, they're probably going to paint it yellow or red or something, is just dreadful.
Sandra, not that I disagree with you, but are we here tonight to make a decision on that?
Actually, we don't make the decision, and that's why
Right.
I'm saying this. It will come in through our code enforcement. And I just want to go on record to say that it is not compatible with what is in our ordinances.
I share that concern. Since we're making this part of the record, and John, I guess this is mostly for you because that will come not under our purview, but yours at some point in time. I don't know what the exterior of this building is. It looks like Drive It, but I'm not sure. I can't tell from the pictures. And it doesn't say that I could find in the descriptions. So that's a concern of mine too, is what this will look like. It is a flat roof. I guess it's sort of sloped, but anyway, I call it a flat roof. There are some things as to the design of it that I think ought to be discussed.
Well, if and when they get to that point, they will need a building permit, and Rick and I would review that and interact with their architect or whoever it is that works for them on that in approving or not approving the building permit.
Okay, could I, since we're making suggestions, I'd like to go back to what Frank and I were discussing earlier today, prior to this meeting, and that is to, if I could be so bold, and Frank, if you would help me with this a little bit, to suggest, or maybe actually ask you, John, as our mayor, because it's not a legislative control thing, but I think three things need to be done. First, confirm our suspicions that it is indeed feasible to create a means of entrance and egress to the back of the proposed Gustavo property. That would be a huge asset. It would eliminate the left-hand turns out there on US 42.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Because I went on Logic also. And if you look, Delhaven stops before this property. I agree that there is something back there that is unlabeled on Logic. But that unlabeled component does not tap into Forest Cove, which is the little stub right by Kroger. So Gustavo, if he wanted to do that, would have to obtain some way to get to Forest Cove. And that land is owned by LD, or it's an option by LDG. So I think we can ask questions, but I'm not sure it will result in anything that we hope would happen.
I think you're right.
Sandra, thank you. Let me go ahead and get through this. I totally agree with everything you said. So first of all, is it feasible to do, John? Second of all, to finish Delhaven, you're exactly right, Sandra. It just goes straight back. It doesn't make the turn. So it's a ghost street behind the property that we're talking about. So to finish Delhaven Avenue and connect it to Forest Cove, they come so close together at an angle already. And again, Forest Cove is a ghost street at this particular point too. But by bringing those two together and then to work, if this can be done through John's working with Metro Louisville, and then work with Gustavo's restaurant, Gustavo himself, in advance of any final construction, so as to save him money and all that sort of thing, to create an entrance and egress to the back of Gustavo's parking lot from Delhaven Avenue. So by connecting, if we can do it, to the back of his lot to Delhaven, and then if we can connect Delhaven to Forest Cove, then people can go right out there and in from right there where a Kroger gas station is. I think Kroger would love that too, because it would bring potential customers right smack in front of their property. And holy cow, would that be a tremendous asset to relieve the congestion and the left-hand turns on US 42. So I don't know if any of this can be done. And looking at logic, I can see the dotted in street behind it. It looks like it can, but I'm not a civil engineer and I don't have the details of that. So, but anyway, I really love this idea, this ordinance 604-2021. I welcome Gustavo creating a permanent asset and a nice restaurant, a great place to enjoy for the citizens of our community. So I do support it. Thank you.
Actually,
All
one
right.
of the, I think that working with Metro would be a good thing, and I agree that a back entrance and exit would be better. I want to point out that some of that property is in the city of Prospect and some of it isn't. So it would take a joint effort to achieve what you're talking about.
However, let me jump in here. It happens all the time, everywhere. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of coordination when there's dual responsibilities for that thing. But you got to start somewhere. Who owns the right of way? And it may be that the right of way, if it were granted, may have expired. It may we went through that with the right of way for the little road that went over the Putney Pond Dam.
Oh,
You know,
I want to make one more.
Can I say something? I called John Cyrus, Reverend Cyrus. He's the pastor of First Baptist Church, the neighbor of this proposal. He was very supportive. He thinks Gustavo runs a great business. It's a great business for the community. And he had talked to Gustavo about it, and he was very supportive. He had one concern, and that was taking a left out of that lot onto 42, because his church has a serious problem with that. It's very difficult certain times of the day to take a left out of there because it's proximity to Timber Ridge. There's always somebody turning right on Timber Ridge or turning, but I guess it would be westbound on turning Timber Ridge. So he had a concern about that as well.
I was
That would make-
surprised that there wasn't more devoted to that in the documents we got, because that issue has come up. I remember a very long series of discussions when the car wash went in. And that this issue was very hot 10 years ago. There's more traffic on 42, and Metro doesn't seem to be giving it the same weight in this period of time.
Well, that would make five entrances or exit from 42 in that very short stretch. Del Haven, the firehouse, the school, the church, and then now that would be the fifth. So in our conversation today, talking to Greg, tying this into an option for safety on 42 would seem to be a great approach for some of the objectives we have with that safety on 42 project.
Agreed.
Yeah, I also think the one thing I see every time I look at the overhead of Google Maps, I bring it up probably once a month because I get frustrated with the same thing where I'm like, we put a man on the moon, we can figure out how to turn safely. You know what I mean? How can we get from one part of all these shopping centers that are disjointed from where UPS is to where the nail salon and the insurance agent, all these things. So I mean, looking at the satellite view, and I'm looking for I'm sure there was a reason. Every time I think something's a good idea, there is always a reason that it probably hasn't happened already. So I'm sure there's something. But Del Haven to the Kroger thing, I think is bueno. But if there's a bigger issue with that, because parts Metro and parts Prospect, there is a part where like Walgreens and First Baptist Church share about 10 feet of median between them. First Baptist Church and Gustavo's will share an equal amount of median between their parking lots. And I'm just curious if there is an intervention or communication that could be started between some of these businesses to talk about creating a through. And I understand nobody wants people to cut through their business. I 100% get that. But if we all complain about the same thing and you all get your own entrance, we're creating our own problem. So I don't know if anyone has broached that subject or thought about it. I think there's ways to do that in a ton of places in some of the shopping centers. And I know they're all owned by different people. This isn't Prospect saying, hey, I'm connecting you, we'll call it a day. But I do think there is a great way to do this by talking to some of these businesses if they would agree to it. Now, someone chime in and tell me, kill the puppies
We're not,
now. Tell me why it won't
well,
work.
you're trying to reinvent the wheel, reinvent the wheel, reinvent the wheel. This has been a discussion that's been ongoing for 40 years. And the vehicle that we have in front of us that I discussed with Greg, if you have the support of a safety study on 42, which can give us some concrete direction, which includes the type of things that we discussed today, which is who owns those properties and how would you go about getting that done? I don't think you have any argument with anybody
We all agree with you.
who has lived here.
To
Happy with
piggyback
that
on what,
solution as well.
yeah, none of us wants the left-hand turns on 42, but I think overarchingly, this is a good thing. And I think we support it. And I'm pretty daggone sure that we can affect a rear entrance and exit to this property. I'm pretty daggone sure. And I'm looking at the logic map right now. And who knows what LDG is going to do, if anything. I don't know if they're going to come back on this or not, but none of their plans ever included anything that had anything to do with this particular part, which I'll call it the south end of their property, which is where these streets, these ghost streets exist. And I would think that LDG would like the fact that there would be another way in and out of their property. So, and Metro would too. So going back to what Frank said, and John, this falls in your thing, but we'd be glad to help you. But I see this as a very doable thing, working with Metro, and maybe even working with the attorneys at LDG if necessary, because they technically own that property there. But right now, but I think that's the answer. But even if that can't be done, I like this project. I like this restaurant. It's a tremendous asset for the citizens of Prospect. And I firmly believe, I can't say a daggone thing, but I just can't wait for a year from now to be gone. Don't want to wish my life away, but I just know that there are going to be some tremendous safety improvements along US 42. I don't know what they're going to be, but I think it's going to be better than what we've had. It better be. And so I'm looking forward to that. So I'll shut up with that.
Let me ask this question. Does anyone want to make a motion to have a first reading of ordinance 604?
Yes, I do.
Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we have a first reading of the ordinance that would accept and approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission for the rezoning of this property. Let's take a roll call vote on that. Sandra?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Doug? And the reason you're coming last, Doug, is you're at the bottom of my screen.
Oh, that's great. But yes, it's the answer.
All right. So who would like to give it a first reading?
I'll go ahead if that's okay.
Okay.
First reading of ordinance 604-2021, an ordinance changing the zoning from R4 residential, single family to C1 commercial on property located at 8909 US Highway 42, comprising of 2.1303 acres and being in the city of Prospect.
All right. Now that's first reading of that ordinance. As you all know, we'll take a second reading to consider passage of it, and passage of that would be in effect, that would be the legal rezoning of the property if that on second reading gets passed. Chris, I remember a case that I had, actually it was the second time I was in the Kentucky Supreme Court, and it involved a provision that was added to the zoning law, which said
60
that if
days. Yeah.
the legislative body, which is you, did not act on the recommendation within 60 days, that it automatically became approved.
Right.
I disagreed with the constitutionality of that law at the time, but the Supreme Court of Kentucky disagreed with me, and there it is. So what that means is if we don't pass this ordinance or any ordinance acting on that recommendation within 60 days of its receipt, then it becomes kind of moot. It's automatically approved, which gets into my point, which is when does that 60 days expire? And I believe it's before we have our next regular meeting. If I'm right about that, then we
But
would
it
need to
doesn't
have-
matter because we've approved it. So it's a moot point.
You haven't approved it. You've had a first reading of an
We're
ordinance.
not
that
going to
approves it,
deny it.
Right?
So if it becomes law in 60 days, then it's fine.
Okay, so you don't care. All right.
Happy to meet in short order if somebody wants, if there is a quorum of people who want to, just to be, to put an affirmative stamp on it, that's fine with me. I am,
Yeah.
Charlotte is in a sea of, Charlotte is in a sea of snow days.
Just to make it
I'm
official, I'm
happy
okay
to
with
meet
that
up.
too.
It
Special meeting.
it would literally take about 4 minutes.
When did we get it? Do we know that?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but
Laura might know when we got it.
I don't have that information right in front of me. I think it was the 21st, but I believe it's
It said
60
January
days from when the
7th.
planning commission voted on it, which was January 7th.
But if it's 60 days from the date of receipt and it's 21st, then our next meeting is fine.
But I think it's
I think
60
she's
days
saying
from when the
it's,
planning commission approved it.
Right.
Can we look that up?
Chris,
And that
would you
is
help us look
January
into that?
7th.
Chris, would you help us look into that?
are there 4 council, so I'll go, Greg will go. Are there 2
I'll
other
go.
council members? Don, is there one more who would show up?
Sure, I
Doug?
would, but it depends on the date.
Okay. Well, how about, because I gotta open the calendar here. How about the 18th? Anytime.
I've got to get my calendar.
Yeah, same here.
Sorry, Mayor, I'll let you propose the date since
No,
I
no,
just
no. you're doing
hijacked
fine.
your.
No, you're doing fine.
I mean, I got smacked down earlier. Now I get to take it back.
Well, actually, Sarah, it's the council that determines the date.
That's right.
That's true.
Depends who calls the
Well,
meeting.
that's true. If we're gonna call it, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
In that case, I'm good with the 18th.
You're calling the meeting, so you set the date.
What's it?
Well, how about
Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
the 18th is Thursday. Do you guys want to do?
Okay.
You want to do 11?
Yeah, that's fine.
Fine with me.
I
Don,
can do
Doug, Frank.
Actually, I can do
Sandra?
11.
Okay.
Me too.
Or I have trash meetings.
Trash. By trash,
Yes,
you
I-
mean refuse? Is that what you mean? Not
Waste
not,
management.
Yes, yes, yes. I assumed you didn't mean like junk meetings. Then.
Well, it depends on what.
Depends on what meeting it was, but not that
Yes,
one.
it
Not that
does.
one. I got. Okay,
Okay,
18
the
February,
18th at 11, WebEx.
7 a.m. Laura, did you catch
Good with
that?
me.
Ron?
Yeah, I got it. Send
you
the
said
agenda
take it.
out tomorrow morning.
Ron, is that okay with you? Set it up?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wait, Ron, when's your dentist appointment? Isn't it Thursday morning?
Oh, it is. You're right. I'm getting a root canal Thursday morning, so.
Why don't we just go to City Hall?
I can set the council room up to where everybody's more than 6 foot apart and
Yeah, Thursday's the day of the extra storm, just FYI.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. We could space out. I'm okay.
We won't be
too.
there but a few minutes.
Are you gonna do it WebEx, or are you gonna do it at City Hall?
Sounds like we're saying City Hall if everybody's okay.
Ron.
I
can
would
do
have
it?
to bring Charlotte.
That's all right.
We'll vote quickly.
Okay,
You've never,
I'm just throwing it
you've
out
never
there.
seen the shoe kids? You never seen the shoe kids at the back of the council chambers?
Could you make
Well,
it?
these days I haven't.
Could you make it at noon instead of 11? I have a conference call on a case I have at 10, and I don't know if that'll be over in time for me to get down there.
I do have
Noon-
one question, Chris. Are you going to bring food?
No,
Okay, so
Friday
noon
work
on the
everybody
18th
better
at City
put
Hall.
WebEx was.
At noon.
At noon. High noon.
I know.
Noon.
I knew, good.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question while everybody's on the phone still? Well, I'll
Okay with
ask it
me.
since no one minds.
It was me.
One of these days, can we come back around to chat about the potential to connect parking lots in businesses on that side of 42? Not us doing it, but approaching the
Well,
businesses.
no, we all
to think about
agree.
that.
It's just that the implementation is a very real issue.
Okay. I
mean,
hear you on that one. Okay.
I think a whole bunch of disconnected, small commercial areas is not a good way to run a city. And they all developed by topsy-turvy. There has never been a way to connect them, and it's not that simple. Our talking about it is not going to make it happen, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
100%, but I have more effort than I have presence, and I'll tell you, I will.
Physically, it means taking down a couple sections of fence and throwing in maybe 8 or 9 cubic feet of asphalt.
No.
And the approval
we
of the
don't
two
own
people running it.
property. We do not
Yeah,
own those property.
physically,
We
it's
have
not
to
a
get
big
all
deal.
kinds of cooperation.
Well, I'm happy to, if that's something to, one day chat with the mayor about it, just to check in with the businesses and see, because a lot of times they don't think like that either, like, man, my property has no other way out. When you're like, well, actually, I mean, it does, but have the snowplow accidentally run over that side and you've got another way
Well,
out.
Sarah, when it's not so cold, let's walk over there.
I hear you. I was out today and I'll tell you.
I was out today
It's-
too. It's a bear.
It's cold.
Listen,
Okay.
now where we are,
Thank you all.
where we are with our agenda, we have unfinished business comments from citizens. Is there any unfinished business we haven't touched on?
I just have a question, John, if I may. This is just curiosity. I know the last month has been crazy in weather and everything, but I'm just wondering how the task force, for lack of a better word, is coming along on the personnel policy. I think, are we having a report maybe at the March meeting is my question.
I'm probably the only person who can really answer that. Andrea has spent the past month going over the personnel policy, and she just sent it back to me with her notes last week. So that's all that's been done at this point.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious. No worries.
And Laura, you're going to catch back up with the three of us. Is that correct?
Right. I want to get back to Andrea and see if she wants to set up a WebEx meeting or something.
Actually,
Awesome.
it's not just three. All of us need the information.
Oh, yeah, the three working group to chat about it, but you're right. Sorry, Sandra, thanks. I had one other comment from a person who had asked me about a concern they had. If anybody has anything else before I chat about a citizen comment. It was, if anybody, and this is mainly if anybody else had this problem or had heard other residents about the timing of the lights at Fox Harbor and US 42, mainly the length of the yellow lights. And I guess there are several accidents in that area. And I guess I've heard from 2 separate people about that. I just want to throw it in people's ears in terms of if they've heard those things or when they're out driving around to look at it. I'll catch back up with you all, some of you later, but that was an issue that somebody had said, the timing of the lights exiting Fox Harbor don't allow enough time. People come out in the intersection and then get stuck and sit there in a red light and end up getting in the way. I'll circle back around.
Since it's a state highway, what
No,
do you think we should do?
No, so that was, if anybody had that issue, I'd talk to Tom Hall at KYTC and go, hey, is this going to be part of the study? We'd prefer not to pay for that as part of the study, obviously, since you all should probably be looking at that, but to get it done. So I realize it's not us. I just want to know if anybody else had that I could compile and not, I don't want to exaggerate the claim. So I want to go, hey, I've heard from 2 people and these people have heard from these others. So I know who to contact, but I just want to see if anybody else had any inputs about that.
This is Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, you don't have to contact the state to do that. Metro Traffic Engineering handles the traffic lights, and lights throughout the day actually go on different cycles depending on the time of day and things like that through studies. They're actually far more sophisticated than you would think, and they can actually just come out and look at those and they can tell you whether or not the thing's gotten out of cycle. So that's merely a request that we can put into the supervisor at Metro Traffic Engineering, and they can come out and look at the light and see whether or not it's functioning at the way that it was initially set up. We had a problem with the one at River Road before, and they come out. That's why those boxes now are humongous, the ones that are set up at the intersection, because of the way that the computers work. So they can come out and they can check it, and they can, they do their own studies, but there's actually somebody with Metro Government that handles that. And it's Metro Traffic Engineering. So when those lights go bad, and if you see one on flash, like up at the Snyder Freeway, we don't actually call the state. We call Metro Traffic Engineering, and that's who comes out and sets the lights. Years ago, the policemen used to have keys to those light boxes, and we could go in there and we could actually just hit a button and it would do reset. But now, since they're all computer related and they think policemen are too stupid, they won't let us in them anymore. So they took away my key. I'm sorry.
Well, that is exceptional information. Now I have I have one question. I'm happy to do it, but Jeff, are you gonna call them, or do you want me to call them?
Let me interject. I can call him. I have his name. I know exactly who to contact.
Okay, just call the.
Coincidentally, when Sandra and I went to the Modern Roundabout seminar last year,
right,
we met the guy, and we had a nice conversation with him. And he said, if you ever want anything changed,
just have him come out and do an assessment on the traffic light, and then they can come out and look at it and tell you whether or not it's functioning the way that it was initially set up.
Look at this government operate. Greg, will you follow up with me?
I guess so. Yeah.
Thank you. Gosh.
And the chief too.
Oh, I made up every bit of that. But
All right, what else?
I have a question. Where are we on the bidding process for the repaving?
It's been put out to bid, I believe, Sandra, and we're waiting for a response from Milestone.
March 2nd.
We're on the subject of
for
roads.
submitting
I would
bids.
like to just give a big thank you to Scott Reed and his office and everybody at Metro. They really saved us on salt this year. As most of you are aware, the salt shed was damaged. We literally got it done about 2 days before the ice storm, which gave us no time to restock. And Scott got hold of Metro Public Works, and they hooked us up with a couple 100 tons of salt. So
that's terrific.
Really want to say thank you.
Hey, Ron, how's our budget for that looking?
We're actually pretty good because we had a little bit to start with, but if we keep taking hits like we're taking right now, it's going to dig into it. But we're actually looking pretty good. I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but we're looking pretty good on it.
Okay, good.
I've got one thing. If you all, when you know you may have a legal question, could call me before the meeting, it would really be helpful. It would help me be able to serve you better. A lot of these things require some research, and it's very dangerous just to practice law the spur of the moment, as Doug can tell you and the mayor can tell you. So I can do a better job for you if you give me a heads up and give me a little advance notice, and I would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
See you guys. Stay
Everybody.
warm.
Good to
Bye.
see you.
All right.